Hello everyone, my name is Yazan Al-Araj. I'm a cybersecurity consultant at CyberKnight. Today we'll be presenting one of the leading risk and network modeling solutions out there in the market, known as RedSeal. Now, before jumping into the product itself, let's first try to set the scene by understanding the evolution of the threat landscape, or the cyber threat landscape. So, the threat landscape actually started, when individual hackers engaged, just at the early stages of the digital revolution. We invented the computer systems. So they were individual. They were actually driven by, interest. They were driven by, just the fun of breaking things and making things work in different ways. Right? However, moving forward, this thing actually became much more of a financially and politically motivated kind of attacks. So, with the emergence of all these digital banking systems, the emergence of the internet, this actually became such a playground for such individuals and hackers to actually make financial gains out of that, or spread political messages or political opinions. So it became such a playground for hacktivists or cyber criminals for doing their interests, right? With the digital transformation that is happening, actually this actually opened doors to organized crime and racketeers. So they started, exploiting, these things, or the knowledge that they have, and actually making money in an organized way. So malwares, ransomwares, all for, let's say, financial gains. However, we've been noticing in the last 10 years, all these kind of incidents that is actually happening as kind of, let's say, a warfare, or a war kind of attacks. So it's a nation-state attacks that are actually targeting the, national ICT infrastructures of nations. So this is actually becoming much more of a war scene. And this is, the sad reality of today's cyberland landscape. It's becoming much more of a war zone rather than just a place, to do business. So, talking about war zone, there are actually multiple fronts for any war. One of them is the home front, because again, this war, or cyber war we're actually witnessing, it's much more of a defensive war. So all these organizations and entities, they're just trying to survive within this harsh, let's say, environment. So, first things first is that you need to protect your home front, or your internal front of this cyber war. I mean, you don't really need to care much. Well, you need to care about, what's happening on the outside, but most important is having visibility in your home front. So let's take a real life example from a real war that happened actually in the past century. We're talking about World War II. The Blitz. The Blitz was a very unfortunate event in which Nazi Germany actually bombarded the United Kingdom, and specifically the city of London. Hundreds of aircrafts actually dropped hundreds, even thousands of bombs on the city, and which could have actually broke the United Kingdom down to its knees. But one of the things that actually gave the UK advantage in surviving such an attack is they had proper visibility over their city. So the city was very well structured. It was very well documented. They had very good maps. They had very good maps of the railway. This was helpful in actually to managing the incident while it was happening. So if it wasn't for this visibility, personally, I don't think the United Kingdom would have stood a chance in surviving such an attack. So this is just for setting the scene. Let's move forward and talk more into the technicalities of the solution we're discussing today. So let's talk about the fundamentals of cybersecurity. One of the main fundamentals in cybersecurity is having visibility. You need to know what you have, you need to know how it's connected, and you need to know the risks or the vulnerabilities that threatens them. So RedSeal, it will tell you what kind of inventory you have, it will show you how it's connected, and it will explain the vulnerabilities and thus the risk in your environment. So from a network inventory and topology perspective, RedSeal will ensure that every network asset that you have in your environment is accounted for, It will perform checks against industry standard for these devices configurations, and there's the ability of actually writing your own custom checks and checks for your security controls, right? So it will enhance your inventory coverage. It will make sure that your configuration or device configuration complies with the best practices out there in the market, such as CIS, STIG, DISA, and many more. It will also check the configuration for compliance, such as PCI payment card industry data security standards, and it will help you do firewall cleanups. Let's talk about finding and securing devices and some of the challenges that some people face. One of the things that network admins face is that they don't have proper real-time visibility over the network. For instance, someone could start an unknown app or like just connect a link, without letting the IT or network department know, which is actually known as shadow IT. You might have weak devices password, poorly configured firewalls, unwanted protocols that are still active, or poor SNMP configurations. These will actually open a very critical threat landscape within your home front. So it's crucial to have visibility over your internal network in order to secure it, because if you don't know what you have, you can never secure it. If you don't know about the risks that you have, then it's not there. The risk, it's unknown risk, right? And you'll know about it once it's too late. RedSeal will also provide endpoints scan coverage, in the sense that will actually find security gaps within your endpoints from an endpoint protection solution perspective. It will reconcile your host within the network or with the network, and it will correlate the endpoint product coverage and results, which will give you a much more higher visibility of the posture of your endpoints within your infrastructure. It can also find network inconsistencies and segmentations, because one of the main things also in having a secure network is having a consistent configuration, a consistent segmentation, and a properly segmented, let's say, environment, right? So it will make sure that same model is applied across all network devices. It will validate your segmentation strategy or segmentation model based on well-known standards and compliance list, right? And it will assess the risks that you have within your network from a firewall perspective. It will give you a digital model of your network, so it will show you the whole network in a very user-friendly graphical user interface format. It will show you inconsistencies in your network, such as overlapping IP address space or duplicated VLANs, which is it's a very critical issue, because then you would have a lot of network issues happening within your network. And it will assess all the risks that you have, and it would, overall it will give a very broad visibility across your environment. So it will also provide, as mentioned earlier, compliance with policies and regulations, from payment card industry, or any other standard policies. Will show you what gaps that you have and how you correct them and how you actually fix them, or what firewall rules are actually, let's say, have some risk related to them, and etc. So it will also provide a risk scoring and digital resilience. This part is also about the risk modeling. So it will show you your risks in a scoring based system or a digital resilience based system. So it will help you in prioritizing your vulnerabilities. It will accelerate the incident investigation. It will help you do your investigation quicker, and it will measure the effectiveness of your security strategy. So it's a way of actually quantifying the risks that you have and quantifying the effectiveness of the security measures that you have. It will help you prioritize these risks based on access paths, which we'll see in the next slide. It will help you investigate incidents in a timely fashion, measure the effectiveness of your security strategy as mentioned, and automate many workflows to accelerate the security remediation process. So moving forward, let's talk about managing vulnerabilities or managing risks. one of the standards in scoring vulnerabilities is actually known as the Common Vulnerability Scoring System. Now, in my opinion, it's one of, it's sometimes it's quite a misleading scoring system, because it actually scores the criticality of the vulnerability based on generic attributes which are not necessarily applicable or related to your environment. So in this example, we'll see that we have 4 vulnerabilities with different scoring, different scores. The higher is CVSS 9, and it goes in descending order. However, looking at this, this sometimes can be misleading if we put them merely in that order, because as mentioned, sometimes the vulnerability score is not actually relevant to your environment or to your, let's say, network model that you have. So, for instance, we can see here that data center have a very critical asset, and that critical asset have a CVSS score of 4. Right, it's a critical asset, so this actually should raise the scoring for the vulnerability itself. Right, this same host has access to another, let's say, critical asset, which even makes it worse. And then you have CVSS4. It has exposure to an untrusted network, which is actually making it easier for someone to access or exploit that vulnerability. So, the last vulnerability, which was scored the highest, on the first look, it does not have any critical assets inside, or any exposure to untrusted networks. So it does not make sense to actually give it a scoring of 9, while the lowest, which is CVSS4, has the lowest scoring system. So this is totally wrong. This is totally misleading, and this can cause a problem later. So what RedSeal help you with is that it helps you prioritize your vulnerabilities or risks based on your own environment. So it's much more relevant to your home front, if you can use this analogy here, just as we mentioned in the beginning of the presentation. So RedSeal will help you prioritize them in such a way that it is much more relevant to your environment. So CVSS6 gets top priority because it's exposed to an untrusted network, meaning it's very accessible from an untrusted network. So it gets the top priority. Then CVS4 gets second priority because it has a very critical assets and it's connected to another critical assets, right? CVS7 goes in third place, and CVS9 or CVSS9 goes in the bottom. This is much more realistic. This is much more relevant to your own internal threat landscape or internal environment, right? One of the other features for RedSeal, it will help you accelerate the incident response within your own network. So for instance, let's say you discovered an IOC in your wireless segment of your network, right? This could actually lead to a chain effects of other breaches, other targets, because this segment of your network has accessibilities to the all other segments of your network, which even makes it worse. So RedSeal give you that visibility in the sense that if you detect an IOC, you can predict what's the next move for the attacker and how you can stop that or respond accordingly to that, which will make the incident response procedure much more easier, reliable, and effective. So yes, going back to the digital resilience score of the risk management. RedSeal actually provides you with a dashboard that will actually give you your digital resilience or digital risk in a quantifiable and graphical, friendly format, in order to actually know what kind of risks are there within your environment, and what is your resilience, how much you are resilient to digital attacks. It will tell you about your compliance, from a compliance perspective. Trending, so it show you the timeline of your digital resilience score over time, which can be very helpful in understanding your maturity level, moving towards a better security posture. It will give you actionable intelligence. So for instance, it would tell you about the top vulnerabilities that you have, how much it's relevant to your environment, the actual ranking for it, not the CVSS ranking. So it will give you much more, let's say, threat internal threat landscape intelligence about your HomeFront or local network, right? So summing it all up, with RedSeal, from a risk perspective, it will give you a risk scoring system, a risk resilience, scoring. So it will help you measure your posture, overall posture from a risk perspective. From a network perspective, it will give you visibility. It will make sure that all your network inventory are accounted for and are securely configured. It will also provide that for endpoints, so it will tell you, the posture of your endpoint inventory, your posture of your endpoint security. Network segmentation, it will help you, virtualize your network and make sure, your network is properly segmented and it is, it's following a very well-designed model. What are the business outcomes? As said, there are mainly four. So from a network perspective, you make sure all your inventories are there, secure and accounted for. Endpoint perspective, same thing, all hosted, accounted for, and it will show you if you have any gaps, within the protection coverage or the scan coverage. From a design compliance perspective, to make sure that your network is properly designed and properly segmented and implemented, and you can actually validate this via the graphical user modeling system within RedSeal. From a vulnerabilities perspective, it will make sure that all your vulnerabilities are prioritized based on your own network environment or own environment, and it will help you make sure that whatever security investments that you're making, they're actually giving a return on investment. So they're properly implemented, properly placed, and properly configured. So RedSeal also provide a very rich integration system, so it can actually integrate with multiple vendors out there in the market. So from a integration perspective, network, it can integrate with most, if not all, network infrastructures, vendors, and even cloud infrastructure. Endpoint perspective, they cover a huge portfolio of endpoint security products and vulnerability scanners. From a compliance perspective, they can integrate with SIM and many other solutions. And from risk management, they can also integrate with many big players there in that arena. So yes, I hope my presentation was very insightful to you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and yes, hope that I've shared something interesting today.